Oh, hi, my name is Shona. I'm a member of the Women's Network for the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and I've been asked today if I will give a few tips about supporting autistic service users for obstetricians and gynecologists. I am autistic, so that's why I've been asked to do it. I've got 2 autistic children and I have a master's in autism, and I do a lot of speaking about autism and training. So the first tip I would say is make sure your staff are trained in autism. It is actually looking like it's going to be mandatory for healthcare staff to have training in learning disabilities and autism, but you don't need to wait for it to become mandatory. It's good practice anyway. The key thing is to make sure that you are involving autistic people in that training. So make sure you hire people who are autistic or where autistic people are involved in the design and the delivery of it. Tip number 2 is don't rely on the person telling you that you're autistic. Sometimes when I tell organisations that they ought to get autism training, they may say things like, oh, but we don't have any autistic people using our services. Unless you're a really tiny organisation, that's extremely unlikely. We used to think that 1% of the population were autistic, but actually more recent research is saying it's closer to 2. That's research in America. But I think it's underdiagnosed, and actually a lot more people are autistic. And it's a stigmatised diagnosis. So some people won't know they're autistic. Other people will know but won't tell people because of the stigma and the discrimination that autistic people face. So you won't necessarily know, they may not tell you, and that's up to them. So assume that you've got some autistic people using your service and do your best to make sure it's accessible. There is actually a legal obligation on service providers because of the Equality Act 2010. So you need to make sure that you're doing what you can to ensure that autistic people can access your services legally. And if you have any equality and diversity training, make sure autism is part of it. Be aware of masking. So masking is a term that gets used for when autistic people are able to pass as non-autistic people. It's done subconsciously usually. People say that women do it a lot, autistic women, and which is why there are lower diagnosis rates amongst autistic women, though actually any gender. I see masking in any gender. The problem with masking is, although it might have some short-term benefits for the autistic person, it can be very stressful, and it means that people don't always believe that they're autistic. They don't realise when they're struggling, and they don't get the support that they need. So if somebody tells you they're autistic, but they don't seem like they are because of what you think autistic people normally behave like, it's probably just that they're good at masking, and you should believe that they're autistic and that they may need some support. One of the things that characterises autism is what's known as a spiky cognitive profile. So if I explain that, that means that you may be really skilled in one area, but then really have a lot of difficulty in another area. And this can lead to a lot of misunderstandings. So if somebody was intelligent and appeared to be very articulate, people may assume that they are understanding everything that they're being told. So some autistic people might have auditory processing difficulties, so they can't take in everything and understand it all, but because they appear so intelligent, people think that they're being willfully difficult when they get things wrong. And that's not necessarily the case. But on the flip side, you get some people who are understanding a lot, but then they maybe can't speak, and people assume that because they can't speak, they've also got some intellectual difficulties. And these sort of misunderstandings, I would say, are what make autistic people's lives so difficult. It's not necessarily the autism, it's the way that autistic people get treated and misunderstood that makes our lives so stressful. And these bad experiences then go on to make people less willing to engage with service providers, including healthcare. If you want more information about autism, a good place to go is the National Autistic Society website.